This episode of Finding Demo Surf Fishing is being brought to you by the Kids Can Fish Foundation. Head over to kidscanfish.net and take a look at all the awesome things that they're doing for these kids. They get them all together, and all your proceeds, all the money you give in, goes right back into the organization, and they take these kids out fishing, whether it's surf fishing, throwing cast nets, stuff like that. They take them out, they teach them how to do it, and then when they're done, they give them the gear. And it doesn't cost the kids anything. So everything that gets put together is because of you, and they are doing awesome things. They are down in the St. Simons Island, Georgia area, and they are going to be growing. You will hear more about that as time goes on. I can't talk about it yet, but really, really good things with Kids Can Fish Foundation. Awesome stuff. Kidscanfish.net. Go take a look at the website, help them out. You won't be sorry. You're helping some kid do some great things with their life. Welcome back, everybody. Hope you're doing well wherever you are. Things are going phenomenal for you this year, and everything's on the up and up. I know it's winter; it's still a little chilly, and you can still catch fish. Believe it or not, there's plenty of great fishing out there in this winter time. This week, we're getting on the old digital plane, and we're heading north. Yeah, for winter, we're going north. What am I thinking? We're going up to New York. If you haven't heard of this gentleman, you have been missing out. He has a phenomenal radio show. And let's see here, digital content. Lots of other ones. Oh, wait. Oh, he's a guide. Yeah, there's a whole lot of things. We're going to be talking with Bernie Hoyt, also known as Bernie Bass. And you can find about all that information about him is going to be linked back on findingdemosurffishing.com and on the website or on this podcast. Everywhere you found this, you're going to find it. You can find their show on the App Store as well, wherever the podcasts are or wherever you get them from. The Tight Line with Bernie Bass and the Captain. Lots of good things that are going to be coming from that. So without further ado, with me running my mouth, let's get him on the show. Bernie, welcome to the show. Good to have you here, man.
Hey, it's a pleasure. I'm really happy to be on here. I'm
It's
looking
only
forward to a nice conversation with you.
Thank you. And it's only taken us, a few months with me jumping back and forth. Like, oh yeah, you were supposed to. My bad. I missed out on every chance I could to record, so I screwed that up a few times. But
It
I'm
seems
glad to
like
finally have you.
our both lives are very busy. Especially me during fishing season. It's always tough to tag me down for anything,
You gotta love
including
it.
work.
Yeah. Yeah, balancing, let's see here, guiding your regular job, the radio show, just regular life. Yeah, it's real, man. People, I don't think people realize some of the fun stuff that you get to play with in the background. Well, let's jump right in here. Let's just start at the very beginning and get down to where we are because we got a lot of stuff to talk about today, and I want to not lose any of your time. So let's start at the beginning. Tell us your story and what got you into fishing.
Well, I started fishing when I was really young. I started with freshwater. There was a local little lake, Yaphank Lake, near me in the hamlet of Brookhaven on Long Island, where I grew up. And my dad started me out with like the small stuff like that, and then eventually he took me surf casting when I could kind of handle it on the beach part of it. And I actually caught my first fish was a mid-teens bluefish. When I was really young. And that was, really what got me hooked. I hate to use that, but it's so true in the surf fish. And once I started catching bigger fish, that was it. I didn't want to go back to the lake and catch little freshwater, fish. On Long Island, freshwater fishing, we have it, but we don't get the size fish that, a lot of other places get when the freshwater game. So you got to get into the saltwater game if you're looking for, the bigger fish. And that's how I really got started. And, the rest really is history. I mean, it's really just the major part of my life in all aspects of my life. I think about it 24/7.
Yeah, it's a kind of an addiction. I don't know how it happened. It just sort of does, right?
It really is. And I always say it's a positive addiction, but it can, it can be interfering in your life at times.
What? No. What do you mean? I got 10 minutes. I can throw a line. I mean, none of us ever think that as anglers, especially on the surf side.
No, but when you have your family, like you don't go to events and things, and friends ask you, what's wrong with you? We haven't seen you out, things like that. You say to yourself once in a while, oh, maybe they're right a little bit. It is kind of an addiction.
Yeah, but they could also join us at the beach, and I mean, I'm not saying that any of us would, be really upset if you guys joined us for a few hours while we're out there doing this. But you can come to our office too. We promise to bring good times for that. With that one running through, let's like, ooh, man, how did I miss that one? What is your favorite thing about fishing?
I think it just, it really, for me, I don't want to say it's an escape. I don't like using the word escape, but it really is, it just gets me in touch with, I don't know, the environment and things like that. I feel like, and Long Island is a hustle and bustle place. We're not far from New York City. It's very busy out here. I'm fortunate to live on the eastern end of Long Island where it's a little less busy. But where we are placed on Long Island, we're only, everybody that lives on the island though is only probably 10 or 15 minutes away from a body of water, whether it be the bay, the ocean, or the Long Island Sound. And yet, being it's 15 minutes away, that 15 minutes, when you get to the beach, you feel like you're a world away, though. There's still a lot of empty beaches and spots if you're willing to walk and do things and fish odd times and stuff like that. It really is. I feel like it's a world away. It gets you away from that everyday hustle and bustle. And I think that's for me and a lot of people I fish with. And I notice a lot of my clients from the city, on the guiding end of it. There's this one guy who fishes with me 3 times a year. That's the only time he fishes. But when he comes out here, he's so wound tight. And then it just seems like he relaxes. And I think that's, what it is for a lot of people. It's relaxing.
Definitely good call there. The For those that don't know, if you look at New York on a map in Long Island, if you go to the easternmost point, there's a park down there. It's a different world on the eastern end of Long Island than it is, what, 15 miles to the west. Even, I mean, just looking across the water, it's a completely different world than New York itself. It's serene almost. It's just nice.
It really is. And, a lot of people discovered it during COVID that wanted to get out of New York City. A lot of people bought homes out here and a lot of people rented places out here, with the whole COVID thing and really discovered. And a lot of them never left. And a lot of them still work from home. I don't blame them. You hear people complain, oh, there's so many people out here now and stuff like that, but I don't blame them for wanting to come out here. It is a beautiful place.
Yeah, you're definitely in a beautiful one, especially even in winter. It's not that dreary, which says a lot for New England. I mean, me being from just across the water from you into a little bit to the east, I remember winter being just straight dreary, and it was always kind of sad. But then you get down to the water in certain places, it's not that bad. It's like, oh, all right, it's just cold, just a little wet,
Yeah,
not
and
bad.
it's been, we've had a mild winter so far. We're expecting a little snow, each and every week. They keep saying little flurries here, little flurries there, but we really can't complain.
Nice, very nice. Can you share a memorable surf fishing story, including anything that was an unexpected catch or challenging fishing situations that always sticks out in your head right away when you think about it?
Being we were just talking about when I got started, I went to a local beach. Smith Point is the beach, and there's a local beach on there, Great Gun Beach, actually. And it's funny, that's became my email. Great Gun is my email, and that's my first beach I ever caught my first surf fish from was a mid-teens bluefish, and the biggest memory was just with my dad when that fish hit me. I mean, I thought it was like a freight train. And I remember winding the reel, and I'm really starting to reel it in. I can't do it. And I keep saying to my dad, I can't do it. I can't do it. And I had hip boots at the time when I was really young that my dad bought me because he didn't want me in waders because of the dangers of waders when I was a kid. And he had me by the loop of my jeans that I had under the hip boots. And as I'm reeling and I'm getting pulled into the water, kind of, and I'm like, I can't do it, Dad. I can't do it. And he's holding the loop of my pants. That's how it was. And that was my first fish. And I think that was the biggest memory for me.
That's so cool. And bluefish in New England, for those of you who've never seen them, bluefish in New England are different than a lot of places. They're big, they're powerful, they're mean, and they're really tasty.
Yeah,
Mm.
we get them into the 20-pound range, especially in the spring when the big hammers start to come in, and it's a lot of fun, especially on the top water.
Oh, dude, I'm so excited for you to talk about that later on because top water, you and two other people last year when I was doing kind of research and picking on things, You and just a couple other guys really made me start realizing that I have been missing out on a lot of fish because I'm not using top water lures. And it's a different game to use it, and I've been trying to do better. But I want to say thank you for that. Thank you for making me realize I was missing out on a fun side, and you make it look cool. So, all right, let's keep going here because if not, I'm going to go down that trail and we're going to get way off track. So, let's talk about the tips, tricks, and knowledge piece here. How do you plan your fishing trips?
Based on, my fishing trips are, based on, the normal things, the wind, the moon, the tide, and, a lot of the tides around here are really spot specific where, the certain tide works at a certain time, you could be on the South Shore of Long Island. And always the good rule of thumb is, the dropping tide or whatever, but there is a couple places that really are, it's the first part of an incoming. It's the last part of an incoming, and that's really what comes with, keeping notes, keeping your, logs, and just the experience of over the years, of just keeping track of each outing, whether it's you catch, whether you don't catch, you got to keep track of all that, the winds, the tides, the temperatures, the water temperature. It really is, you have to have that knowledge, especially being a guide, because, my job is to put each and every client on every outing in the best position to catch fish at that given time.
Great tips on there, especially on the tide one. And notebooks are so important. So you've got that one, you got your plan started. How do you select the spot to fish?
If I have a client, whether I'm fishing with a client or fishing with a friends during the season or myself, I'm basically out 6 nights a week. And on any given night, I could be anywhere because there's going to be a time where, you're fishing a bite for 2 or 3 nights and that's going to dry up. And then you got to find them again and you're constantly on the move. So I do always have two to three locations in my mind, usually in that given day. And then we kind of narrow it down the day before, a couple days before. I do not try to keep the blinders on and fish one location all the time. I always figure if someone's just starting out and they're a novice angler, I always tell them they should fish a location close to them and figure one spot out first instead of jumping around. But because of what I do and the amount of time on the water, I have to constantly jump around to put that person in the best position.
Definitely great stuff there as I'm clicking the wrong buttons here for some reason. Uh, I see my mouth moving and I don't hear it, which is always fun. Let's take this one step further now that you talked about the spot there. How can someone in that area read the beach or those zones to interpret the conditions to identify, all right, that's going to be a good spot. No, that's not really going to be, oh, hey, this is a feature I should go with.
I always tell, I do a lot of seminars too, and these questions always come up in the seminars. Where do I go? What do I do? And even in seminars, you get anyone from a novice angler to an expert angler, and even myself, I'll sit in seminars if I can pick up one thing that's going to help me or help my clients. I want to know about it. So what I like to do is I tell the clients, you got to see these places at low tide because you have to see where the cuts are, the troughs, if you're fishing the South Shore, things like that. On the North Shore, I always say you can get away with not doing as much research because our North Shore of the island is all boulder fields. And if there's boulder fields and you have that hard structure, there's always going to be some, source of bait around that structure. I'm not saying don't do your research, but you can kind of get away with not doing as much research if you don't have the time because that's the biggest thing. People are pressed for time. Even me as a guide, I'm still pressed for time and, jobs, life interfere. So if you don't have a lot of time, to get out there and do a lot of research, on your own, look for those hard structure areas, even on the South Shore of Long Island. I mean, if I had a half hour, say, just to fish after work before getting home for dinner or other obligations, taking kids to sports, dance, etc., I'd find an inlet. Go to an inlet because you got that hard structure of those jetties and rocks, and there's always going to be some kind of bait source lingering in those rocks, whether it be little crabs, little bait, something like that.
Nice. Like that. So you're at that spot now and you talked about the different identification. So you already know all your pieces you're going to play with here. Let's talk about casting and setting up here. So well, you can pick the field you want to go with. Where are you normally casting your lines?
When I'm casting my lines, I'm looking for sandbars that are dumped that where the water's getting dumped over into a trough where the most part we're fishing for striped bass for most of my clients. That's the target fish they really want. They want to catch stripers, and they're predatory fish that ambush their bait. So they're going to be sitting in those holes, and where the bait's coming off they're looking for the bait to make a mistake. That's what they're really doing. They're sitting, the bait's on the sandbar in the shallow area, and the fish are sitting off where that trough dumps in over the bar, where they have that trough over the bar, and they're just opportunistic predatory fish. So they're just waiting for that little opportunity. I say no different than those seals that are sitting on on the beach or whatever, and you got the sharks right off there in Australia and stuff like that. They're just waiting for that one seal to make a mistake. That's what they're doing. I feel like striped bass are the same way. They're just waiting for that bait to make a mistake, and that's why you prefer kind of the dropping tides, because once those tides start to drop around hard structure like rocks or sandbars, those areas those homes are now no longer there, so they have to push off that sandbar or out of those rock areas where there's no longer going to be water. So
Very
really,
smart.
the tide kind of creates the mistake too at times.
That's a really good point, though. I mean, like you said, they don't have a home anymore. They got to run, and that's just a perfect time. I'm just going to wait for you right behind this rock.
Yep.
Real smart. I like that. So
The big
with
fish
stripe,
and the big fish, they're going to stay out of the current because they're also the lazier fish and don't want to exert a lot of energy because they don't know where their next big meal is going to come from. So they will be sitting behind those rocks out of the current and things like that.
what kind of bait do the stripers like?
Stripers eat a wide variety. Actually, they're eating their bigger baits like bunker, which is menhaden. They're eating crabs, eels. They'll eat small stuff. I mean, what happens is they're going to eat what's there. Sometimes in the bellies of these stripers early in the spring and things like that. There's little grass shrimp, things like that. A lot of the small stuff, and then the bigger baits start to move in, and they'll feast on the bigger bait. But they eat a large variety of stuff.
Wow. Okay. Very useful. So when you're doing these, what kind of rig are you using?
I'm not using bait at all. I don't really fish anything live bait unless the slow time in August. If I have clients, a lot of times I'll have people on vacation and the husband wants to go for a fishing out, and that's when it kind of slows down from the surf perspective. So I will throw live eels with those clients at the time. Otherwise, we're basically all artificial
Oh
plastics
wow.
and bucktails.
Not sitting on a soak. All right. So
Yeah.
you're move fishing.
Yeah, we are. I think, one of the things for me as a surf caster, and I say to people all the time, is, I think the greatest part of the whole fishing thing is the strike. And, people I see I'm not saying against anybody that fishes this way, but, putting the rod in the rod holder on the beach and soaking the bait, that's fine. But, you got to deal with the trash fish and the crabs and all that kind of stuff. And a lot of times you don't get that strike. There is nothing like when you're sitting there in the middle of the night, it's 2 a.m., you haven't had a hit for like 2 hours, and then bang, there's just no better feeling.
Mm, I'm all excited now. Just all I can. My brain just went right to your cast, and you're like, yeah, yeah, things were good. We were doing, ooh, there you go. That initial adrenaline pump up there. It's
But you
it's
know what
nice.
happens sometimes, and this happens, like I said, you don't get a hit for 2 hours or whatever, but you get distracted out there. My mind travels a lot. I'm thinking, things, what do I got to do tomorrow? What's the next step? Things
Yeah.
like that. It's dark in the middle of the night. You see something funny in the sky. Your mind drifts, see a lot of shooting stars and things, but your mind drifts. And all of a sudden you get that hit and then you're not ready for it either.
Yes. Yeah, it's like reset, and it's the wait. What am I? Oh, okay, I got this. Well, it's actually perfect you brought up the night part because I can ask this one before the other one. What are some effective strategies for fishing at night, and what safety? Because we know that's important. Precautions should be taken by anglers.
I'll tell you, I always, night fishing is a different animal. Definitely. I don't, I recommend people learn an area and things like that during the daytime, because then you can actually go back at night and you can, find your locations and things like that. You're not going to obviously look for for, places to fish at night. You have to, hammer that out during the day. That's the first thing. Know the area you're going to fish first. Don't just walk out there at night, because there could be things out there, obstructions in the water, things like that. Um, and when you're fishing at night, you got to have some kind of headlamp. I wear a neck light around that has a mouthpiece on it that I can keep my hands free all the time. Even when I hook up with a fish, I can just lean down and grab the mouthpiece and have the light in my mouth. It frees up the hands because, especially with those toothy bluefish around, you got to really be careful around them. You want to try to free your hands as much as possible. And if you're fishing jetties and stuff at any time, and even more so at night, you got to have some kind of cleated spikes on your soles of your feet, because that you're fishing on those slippery rocks and stuff like that, and all you need to do is take one little misstep, and you're in the water. So you got to be careful. It's definitely, you want to fish at night. You have to, I would say, go with someone experienced to start. I mean, like I said, I have anglers that are from novice to we're wetsuit in Montauk or wetsuit in Cuttyhunk Island in Massachusetts. So there's a broad range.
I got cold thinking about that. The idea of falling in the water on the Atlantic, summer is one thing, but still, at nighttime, different temperature, different feel, all of it. You get wet, it's not a great time.
That's why I enjoy the wetsuit fishing. Yes, it lets you push out to further areas that other people can't get to, because you swim out, you get up on a rock in the middle of the night, you fish. But it also is a safety thing. Like, you get bumped off a rock, and you're buoyant. You don't have to worry about your waders filling up, the safety thing. I do always recommend, again, you should always have a knife on you in case you do slip in the water with waders on us. You got to cut them off. You got to try to cut them open as much as you can so that water doesn't stay in them.
Oh man, great call with the knife. You're actually the first one to really bring that part up about, hey, look, cut them open. It's not worth it. Cut them open. Get out of there.
Yeah, because
Man,
the straps, you fall in, the waders are filling up. The straps are pulling you down. You got to cut those straps, and also cut the boots if you can't get them off.
yeah.
You know,
Well, it's been 22 minutes into this, and now's the absolute perfect time because you all know you got to check your bait. You got to make sure that you got it on there still. You don't want to be missing those strikes. It's nothing good about that. This bait check is being brought to you by the Sinker Guy. Y'all know I love it. Go over to thesinkerguy.com and take a look at everything that Chip's got going on in the Sinker Guy garage. Lots of fun stuff in this website, y'all. I mean, you can get lost in it, really. If you go take a look, you just get right to the homepage here. It's got a little couple of things to talk about, but we go into the good stuff. We get into the garage, into the shop. Need sinkers? It's in his name. It's got you covered there. The Bruno rig, the Uno rig, and the Fishing Mortician rig. We all love those. But if you need other supporting gear, he's got you covered with that. Bait, floats, fishing line, so many different things, any kind of other supporting gear. There's a lot on the website. So again, go over to thesinkerguy.com, take a look, get your order in today. Extremely fast shipping, superb customer service, and Chip's going to make sure you're taken care of every time. That's just how he does it. Sinkerguy.com, get your order in today. So when we're talking about nighttime as well, one of the big things we all know about with that is the moon. And the moon is it's an interesting little thing that really does have an effect on fishing a little bit in my mind. So let's talk about that. How do tides and moon phases influence your surf fishing, and what are the best times to fish based on those factors?
I've actually liked both the new moon and the full moon. However, I tend to do much better on the full moon the new moon in certain locations. I do the full moon. Full moon sometimes when I'll usually it's better for me earlier in the moon of the full moon in the evening. Once it gets up there high in the sky, it tends to be an issue. If I am fishing a full moon, I really want it covered up. I'm looking for cloud cover and things like that, because I do like the tide changes. You get the more extreme high tides and low tide, which is great. Again, it's going to push all those, especially the dropping tides are going to push all those bait off the marshes. If I'm fishing like back bay areas, it's going to push them off the sandbars and off that structure, in the ocean or the sound, things like that. As far as the moons, I like 2 days before. I like the new moon itself, and then 2 days after. And same with the full moon. Mid moons can be an issue, but there's still fish there through the mid moons. But you gotta put in your time and the research.
And people always hate when you hear the you gotta put in the time. That's not a friggin' knock, people. It's a look, if you do it, you're gonna get more experience. I can tell you everything you want, but you're not gonna know unless you go do it.
Absolutely. And I go on vacation to other areas, and I'll give Florida for example. I was in Vero Beach a couple years ago. I hired a guide because I'm down there for a week vacation with my family. I'm looking to get out one day, and that's really all I probably can do because I got a full schedule of stuff to do and see family, and I want to see a couple sites and whatever. But I always have to try to mix fishing in. And what better way than I hire a guide because he knows the areas, things like that, that I can't learn that morning by getting up and doing it. So it is about putting in the time.
Yeah. And you I can't wait till we get into the guide section about that because it is. You're on vacation. Do you really want I mean, do you have time to go scout? You got to catch a tide. Do you have all the equipment to bring with you? Do you really want to bring all your rods, all your rigs, all the hooks? Do you want to bring all that or go to the local tackle shop and spend 300, $400 on reassessing your gear and then have to take it home? It's like, ah, it's just you save more by using a guide with their knowledge and their time than going all the way back up and bringing your own stuff and trying to figure it out. That's just me.
And me as a guide, I also, I like to see how other people do things, in other states or whatever. Again, just like I said in the seminars, why I sit in seminars, if I can pick up one thing that's going to make me a better angler myself, or that I can pass on to one of my guide clients, I'm all about it. I couldn't believe how much you guys use shrimp down there.
Oh yeah.
I mean, oh, everything. We use shrimp, shrimp, shrimp. I was like, whoa.
Shrimp, clam is the one that threw me the biggest curveball. I'm like, wait a minute, you're using quahaw clams? Like, yeah, I use them all the time. Like, why? And then all of a sudden I see the fish. I'm like, okay, lesson learned. I'll shut my mouth and color because it
Oh,
worked.
a lot of striped bass up here are taking on clams.
Really?
Yep.
Hmm. Dang, like them little slurp ups. Oh man. Okay. Well, let's jump into this. So you talked about the waders and the wetsuit. Let's talk a little bit more about the gear there. What are the essential gear and tactical needs for successful surf fishing trip, and how can anglers choose the right piece of gear for those needs?
It's funny. I always say, outside of your rod and reel, probably, as far as equipment, is get yourself a nice pair of waders. You know, I think it's the most essential thing. I see, one mistake I see guys make, and they have the $500 rod, $600, $700 reel, and then they're standing on the beach and they're running back up and down when the waves comes in or whatever because they got jeans and sneakers on. And listen, there's nothing against that, but I don't want to be aggravated with that, like having to worry about water hitting me and whatever. I always think the first thing you should get is a nice set of waders.
Any ones in particular that you really like?
It's funny because they honestly, I think the ones that are in a good price range for someone starting out, Compass 360 makes a really nice pair, a couple different nice pairs or whatever. I burn through a lot of waders over the years, so I kind of don't invest a lot of money because mine are going to get banged up anyway. So I try not to, go crazy with them. I like the drift waders. They're a little more on the higher end, and of course you have the Sims, which are more on the higher end. And I kind of like them too because their return policies are very good, which also helps when you're spending a lot of money. If the return policy is good, you don't mind laying out that kind of money. But if you're just getting into the game, I'd say a decent pair of waders. You can get a decent pair of waders for like $150, and it's totally worth that investment. As far as like your fishing line and stuff, I think that's an important part of your equipment as well. Of course, the rod and reel, but when you think about the fishing line, you always want to make sure your line is new. Okay, you want to check it for fray and stuff like that, because your line. I could break a guide on my rod, I could break a handle on my reel, I can still get that fish in. But once you break your line, that's your only attachment to the fish, and it's gone.
Speaking of line, talk to us about it because I mean your water's different. You're going after stripe and our stripers. You're going after these big fish, especially the toothy critters with the blues. They like to razor through stuff. You got rocks, you got structure, you got a lot of stuff you're contending with up there. Down here, obviously, normally I always see 95% of the time people are throwing braid versus mono, which braid doesn't like rocks. He don't like it at all. What do you like to use up there?
We're using primarily braid, and
Really?
I'm using a long leader with it.
Okay, makes sense.
Yeah. I'm using a long fluorocarbon leader. Minimum's usually 40-pound test, depending on where I'm fishing. I like to keep it longer for two things because I'd rather have the leader rubbing on the rocks if I'm fishing heavier structure than my line rubbing on the rocks because the leader's quick and easier to change. Also, I go long because if the toothy bluefish are around at times, what happens, it gets frayed a lot near where your lure is. So I can just keep backing it up and it gets me quick back in the water. Um, you know, and I don't have to replace the whole leader. So that
Yeah.
helps.
Yeah. That's real smart. I don't have it in the notes, but I'm going to bring it up anyway. Let's talk about this. So you talked about the line there. I'm very surprised at fluoro. I actually half thought you were going to say mono, but I'm loving that. So you're throwing plugs, you're throwing lures, you're throwing all these things more often than not. What type of rods are you using? What size?
I'm using 10. I always, for up here, for the most part, I'm throwing a 10-foot rod. I go up to places like the Cape Cod Canal. I'm using 11-foot rods up there. The back bays here, I'm using 9-foot, sometimes 8-foot. But I always tell people if they're in the market to buy equipment, and just starting out, if they want kind of like a rod where they could kind of fish anywhere around Long Island, whether it be the North Shore, South Shore, East End, I say go with a 10-foot rod because if they're just starting out, I always say you shouldn't spend a ton of money on your stuff to start. Kind of upgrade as you go because you might buy all this stuff. And I've seen this many times, not just with fishing. I've seen this with other things where people go out, they spend a ton of money, and then they wind up not liking it or they get away from it, and then it sits in their garage and just ages and things like that. So I don't recommend jumping out and getting a ton of different rods and a ton of different lures. Kind of keep it simple to start and upgrade from there.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not saying I'm guilty of that, but I may have been guilty with one or two rods in my past. So, when you're out there and you're fishing, you know your spots, you know what you're going after. What do you do when the bite just isn't on fire?
It's funny because you have to kind of have in your head that again with the blinders on, you can't get into that mode of hey. Unfortunately, there's times we go out there. You like I said, even on a given place. Like I was saying, I had 3 different locations in mind, but usually at that location, I also have 3 different areas of that location to fish in my mind. So if it doesn't happen the first at the first place, we move. You have to be willing to move. You can't get stuck in that, hey, it was good the night before, but it's not, oh, it's going to be productive. It's going to be productive. You can't just hang in there. You got to move, especially when I have clients, because I got to get them on the fish. So I got to be willing to be flexible and I got to be willing to move. One thing I do not do though, I won't leave fish to chase fish. I won't chase a report, things like that. I don't, I always say don't chase the report, be the report. And if I'm on fish, and there had been a couple, say I'm on a smaller fish, but there had been some bigger fish in the area, here and there, I'm going to hang in there, especially if there's a large mass of bait there, because those fish, if they are around in that area, they're going to find that bait. That's that large amount of bait.
Yeah. Good call. Like that one. Very much so. All right, last two in this category, and we'll move into the next fun stuff. Let's talk seasons. I mean, winter is winter. There's nothing you can do about that in the Northeast. It just is what it is. But talk me through fishing in through all the seasons.
Okay, so I start out, usually the last week in March, I'll start out up west towards New York City. I fish Little Neck Bay area. I fish over near City Island, things like that, without being location specific. I don't want to, burn any spots, of course, but I do start up west in New York City because obviously that the two migrations are coming up down from the Hudson River for the striped bass, and they're also coming up from the Chesapeake, and they're on the move. So I'm going to go west because that's where the fish are going to start, and the spring season will start kicking into gear. I'll be out east this way, usually first, second week in May. It really starts to kick into gear here. Starts out with the smaller baits and some of the bigger baits will show up. The spring, there's some big fish to be had, especially in in the back bay areas. I mean, that's where they're going to show up first. The water's more shallow. It heats up a little faster, and it gets the fish a little more active to start in the warmer areas, and then we'll move out to the ocean front as we get into June and things like that. And the fall is just, I mean, and the fall run, usually slows down. June is a great month. July kind of slows down into August, but in that point, you got to kind of really switch over to fishing at night if you're looking for big bass at that point, because there's not much going on, during the day. There's
Okay.
a lot of bluefish around them. If you
Uh,
want to have fun, which they're fun. I know. I think they get the bad rap. People like, I don't want to catch bluefish. I'll tell you, anyone that doesn't get excited about catching, a 15, 16-pound bluefish on a plug on top of the water, just watching it strike and whatever, I don't know.
yeah, I still to this day don't understand how some people call blue a trash fish.
Yeah,
It's pound for pound, hell of a fighter. Truly is. It's gonna take you for a run. And if you can catch one of the eater sizes, they're great. The one thing I tell people, if you catch a blue, eat it. But just cut out the dark meat. And once you're cleaning it, just cut a little bit of the dark and it'll taste a lot better. I
yeah.
promise.
I don't eat them.
See? Okay. That's nothing.
But I
I
love. I honestly enjoy catching them. Especially, like I said, on top water during the day, it's great. I really don't like when they show up at night though, because I do throw a lot of soft plastics, and I catch a lot of big bass on soft plastics, and it just destroys my equipment. And there's some nights those stripers will be just honed in on that soft plastic, and but it's worth it for me to have to throw away some lures to get a big bass though.
Yeah. I mean, those teeth, they rip them in half.
Yeah,
There's no messing around with a blue in its teeth. Don't ever, and for any of you who never caught one, don't ever try to lip it. Don't be that
no.
idiot. It will mess you up. It is not a fish to screw with. All right, last one in this category. We'll move in. What are some of the top surf fishing mistakes to avoid, and how can anglers continuously improve their skills and knowledge to do better?
I think one of the big mistakes you can make is report chasing. Because usually by time you're reading that report or seeing, yeah, those reports a little quicker now that the internet and things like that and social media, yeah, but usually and you don't know what to navigate through on social media. You don't know if that was a week ago, 2 weeks ago. I know I don't post. I post stuff weeks later, from when I actually am catching the fish. Um, and a lot of people do that, and like reading the reports, you got to get out there. That's really what it is. It's the biggest mistake. People, they just don't get out enough, whether it be time or constraints or something like that. You know, um, I would say that's the biggest mistake. Another mistake that I see a lot with novice anglers is when they're using artificial lures. They tend to not let the lure do what it was designed to do. Like they'll reel it like 100 miles an hour. That's the biggest mistake that I see with my clients. They don't, and then what happens is, we're trying to get a fish to eat something that's wood, plastic, or lead. So we have to make it look authentic. And, when they're over reeling and not working the plug of the lure, a bucktail or something, the way it's designed to work, what happens is it doesn't look authentic to the fish. And if it doesn't look authentic, you're not going to get a strike on
That's a great one, Bernie.
it. Thanks.
Well, I mean, seriously, everyone. I like hate my pause on this because it annoys me because I just had four different things run through my head. It's There's so many different types of plastics, lures, metals. There just is, and we can all use them different ways. You can pop a topwater rooster a certain way. It's going to do the flash, but maybe the topwater pencil, you have to fish it a different way. Everything is like that, and I think a lot of us don't think of, well, how does this supposed to look? And they don't do the research. They look at it in the tackle shop like, ooh, that looks tasty. Throw it on the hook and launch it. And that what you just said, that's an easy mistake to make because if I'm repping in a paddle tail at 100 miles an hour, that paddle tail's not doing its job. It's probably not looking tasty. It's just, oh, all right, well, there it went. See ya. Maybe I'll get it on the next round. But
And
that's
what's
good
nice is, I
point.
mean, there's a few lure designs, take a bottle plug, for instance, or a
Mhm.
paddle tail. You can feel it right in the tip of your rod. So you know if it's actually, if you're feeling the action in the water. So you know if it's working correctly, if it's
Oh,
biting,
really?
if it's digging in the water. But that
Nice.
comes with, that comes with experience and getting out there. I think that, you talk about biggest mistakes. I think it's just people not just putting in the time, to get out there. And, you make mistakes, with, I'll bring up my cousin for a second. My cousin, Doug, he doesn't get out there as much as he'd like to. He's got a lot of family obligations and he'll miss some big fish when he does get out. And it's just because you're rusty because you haven't been out. And the same thing with the lures, if, he's looking over, he's like, Brian, oh my God, you're out fishing me 3-1 and 4-1, but there's a reason for that. It's because, but I'm also out there, and it's experience like anything else. It's no different than have, a rookie quarterback or a rookie pitcher in the major leagues or something like that. They're going to make more mistakes. They're more prone to throw the interception, say the quarterback, than throw the ball away, things like that. And that's what happens in fishing too. If you're not out there and you're not in the game all the time, you're going to make mistakes. And not saying I don't make mistakes, because I do. I had a night last fall. I lost 3 big fish in a row. I was fishing with 2 buddies of mine. I lost 3 big fish in a row. I was ready to go home. Like that's how frustrated I was. I had one fish straighten the treble hooks out. The next one popped the hook right from the shore. I saw the fish, and then my line broke. And I was like, this just isn't my night. It's time to pack up and go home. And I didn't. I hung in there, and then the next night I hit a couple nice big fish. I didn't get another big one. I caught a couple other fish that night that I had the problem, but they weren't anywhere near the size of those last 3 that I busted off. So
Damn heartbreakers. Oh man.
and it's funny because you always remember the ones you lost. It's crazy.
Oh, easily.
You could land a big fish that night or 2 big fish, but you always think in your head the one you lost. You're like, I don't know why that happened. So, and you can do listen, you can do everything right and have all the experience in the world, and it still happens to you. That's what fishing is, which makes it exciting, because you never know on any given night when you go out there what you could catch.
Well done. All right, let's talk about the business here. What got you into guiding?
It's funny. I kind of started out just kind of like word of mouth. I just started showing people how to, fish. And then it started to morph from there. I started giving people lessons. Hey, bro, I want to get into fish. And somebody at work would say, hey, I want to get into fishing or whatever. And you take them down to the beach, you show them how to cast, things like that. And then it just kind of morphed into guiding. And it just really, everything just really, really morphed, between the guiding and, I write articles once a month. It's really nice to be able to, and that really what helps my winter. I have to be honest. That's what gets me through winters, writing articles, doing seminars at the shows, things like that, because it is a little bit of a long winter up here.
Yeah, it can be. That's a sad truth for there. Some ones you and guys end up hanging out with a weird snowstorm into March. It's really weird.
It's
Not
funny.
often.
This one place we fish up west early in the season, if it snows in March, it's not that productive. And it's just, that's a pattern. It's been this one spot we fish. And it's like, I couldn't tell you why. I've thought about it, but I can't tell you why. I have no idea. And we don't do well there. So hope there's no snow in March for me, okay?
I always hope for I almost always hope for a light winter for y'all. I mean, it's probably, somebody's going to tell me, no, they need it because of what, I still hope for light winters. I worry about my grandmother. I'll admit it, folks. What's your favorite part about running a charter?
I think it's the excitement of getting someone out there that maybe doesn't fish a lot or has never fished before or is from out of state. Like I get a lot of my clients that are on the higher end as far as knowledge and stuff are out of state, but they just never fished Long Island. They fish Connecticut, Massachusetts, whatever. And when you can show them around some of the places down here, like I get excited. And I get excited. I think sometimes I get more excited than the client does when they catch a fish. Like when I have a kid catch a fish or something like that. To see that excitement is unbelievable. I had a father and son. This is going back probably like 5 years ago, out at Montauk, and I had the 3 things in my head where we were going to fish, and they were from Connecticut, and I'm starting to fish the south side of Montauk, and we didn't hit anything. And then we had a nice storm coming in, a nice northeast blow, which is great for Montauk. And then we fished right around the north side, right around the light, didn't have anything. And then we went to the 3rd spot, which was my make it or break it spot at that time. And we went there, and this kid hooked into a bass, landed a bass, and then the bass and blues moved in, and had a lot of fun. He caught his first bass, and his father didn't fish. He wasn't big into fishing, the father at the time. He was more like a boat fishing guy. And I said, because he's a young kid, he has to have a father. Unless if you're under the age of 16, you have to come accompanied with an adult. That's how I run my stuff, And so he gets into a fish, he lands it, and he turns and hugs his dad. He's like, my first Montauk fish. And it was like one of the, well, that was a hallmark moment. This guy, he's hugging his, the son's hugging the dad, and the dad's excited, and the kid's excited. I'm excited. Like, you know, that's what it's all about. Seeing other people do what I do, and start to have a passion for it. It really excites me to see people do well in anything, not just fishing.
Oh man, I'm all grinning over here. I'm like seeing it in my head, and I'm all, oh, cue music, happy moment. Dude, wait, that had to have felt great.
Oh yeah, I mean, and there's if you another quick story. This just happened
Yeah.
this last fall. I actually wrote an article about it. It's up on ibass360.com. I had a father and son. We were iffy whether we were going out. This is a client I've had before, and he usually comes with a friend of his, but his friend bailed on the fishing trip to go hunting, so he wanted to bring his son. So on this particular night, and the son has experienced boat fish, not really a lot with the surf. So on this particular night in the fall, we start getting into some fish, and this kid leans into a nice one. And next thing you know, his reel's not working. He's not retrieving any line, and this fish is a nice sized bass, and he's not pulling it in or whatever. And I've hand lined fish in before. I had one happen at the canal where my friend's reel stem broke. That was a whole nother thing. So I walked over to him, I grabbed the line and pulled on it a little bit, and to see if he could reel it some of the line in when I took the pressure off. And he was able to do that. And after probably a decent 10, 15 minutes, because this fish running left to right, we couldn't bring in a lot of line. And we got it in, and he was like, "Oh my God, that's such a nice fish," or whatever. And I'm like basically almost jumping up and down because I'm more excited than he was at that point. I'm excited, A, because he got the fish, and B, we were able to, land it, with all the problems or whatever. And that's what happened. And that just makes you feel good. I go home those nights. I can't go to bed when I get home because I'm still excited about it. I'm like, that
Yeah.
just happened. Like, and that's happened when I've caught big bass myself at night. It's like, I get home like, oh my God, did I really get that fish tonight? Like,
Oh man,
right.
that's cool. That's so cool. Oh, I'm all giddy. All right, I'm coming up. That's it. I need to get into this. Before we continue on, it's been 47 minutes. We're a little behind here. Let's get ourselves into another bait check. This bait check is being brought to you by Ninja Tackle. You guys know I absolutely love Ninja Tackle. I love all the rods and all the gear that I ever get from there. It's always phenomenal and top notch. Right here, got to talk about it. The old little bummy. That's right. Bama Beach Bums littler rod. The little bummy's a 9'6" rod. Hearing a lot of great things about this. It's been doing really well in the surf and a couple other places you can use it. If you go over to the website, ninjatackleva.com, as you can see, plenty of great things on the website. The Ninja Dagger series, the Beach Bum, the Bummy Stick, the 12-foot, which you guys know, I love my 12-foot. I love my 12-foot. The 9-footer is phenomenal. There's really nothing bad, but if you need rigs, he's got you covered. He got you with ES lures and other hand-tied rigs, hooks, other gear. He's got it all through here. As you can see, 15 pages worth of stuff, sand spikes and bait, all good things all the way through. If you're into the firearm and tactical side, oh, he's got you covered there. Ninja Tactical, lots of good pieces of gear in here. As you scroll through, you're going to find something you need. I know it. Always good stuff. NinjaTackleVA.com. That's the website. Go on over, get your order in today. One of the pieces that you bring up there is talking about teaching. And you mentioned it earlier, hey, people put their time in, but you're also teaching when you're doing your guide one. You've talked about that here with the friends, get them out there. How do you approach teaching and guiding clients in varying levels of surf fishing experience while you're out on your charter?
It's funny because when someone books a trip, I always try to get a little background on the client themselves, their experience level, and I gear the trips towards their experience level. You do run into a problem sometimes where I think a client will overestimate their experience, and I have run into that a few times. And obviously, I won't put that client in that situation. I'm like, no, we're not going to fish there because I don't feel comfortable. First and foremost, is safety. We both want to return home that night, you know, fishing. So, I do try to really guide them towards the experience level.
Very smart. And it's easy for us guys to oversay. Oh yeah, I've been doing this for years, bro. Come on, just be
And the
honest.
teaching, I mean, the teaching piece, I always feel like, I'm kind of a natural teacher. I've been teaching public school is my real job for 25 years. I teach high school. And I think it comes easy to me, the teaching piece of it. And the fishing, I love the seminars and stuff, all that, is very easy to get. I have some experienced anglers that I know that would never get up, and they have a wealth of knowledge, but they will never get up in front of and speak in front of a crowd because they don't feel comfortable doing it. And they're like, no, I just don't feel comfortable. I'm like, but you're not, you can share all this wealth of knowledge. You know, I do it every day to kids that don't want to be there most of the time. So I think when I'm doing a seminar, all those people want to be there because they want to learn about fishing. I'm not saying all the kids I have, but there are some kids that don't want to be there. But when you're sitting in a fishing seminar full of fishermen, to me it's just easy. Or on a guided trip, they just want to learn.
Yep, definitely making sense, especially on that one for the attentives. What advice or recommendations do you provide to the clients to prepare for that surf fishing charter, and both terms of gear and mindset?
I do, I always ask them what kind of gear they have, and then we go from there. And some of the stuff I do provide, I do surprise. Like I said, if you have these lures, fine. If not, I have plenty, and things like that. I do let them use my equipment. I have a couple spare pairs of waders and things like that. But I do have to say, even my novice anglers, most of them come well prepared. You know, Sometimes, I'll get a guy where he just didn't, rig his lineup or whatever because he wanted to learn how to properly rig it and what I do and stuff like that. But for the most part, as far as equipment stuff, they kind of do come prepared. And, they book way in advance most of the time. So unless I get, cancellation, I can squeeze somebody in. Most of my trips are booked way in advance. And, you know, they have time to get the equipment. And they'll always ask me, what should I get? What should I do? And it's funny, I do get a lot of clients. I have this one client, me for years. He has every single thing I have. Like after he sees me with it or sees me wearing it, he comes the next trip, he's got it on. Like he's really like following me to a T. And we joke about it sometimes. He's like, listen, if it's good enough for you, it's good enough for me. And so it's kind of funny.
Yes, it is. It makes things easy too. Um, out of that whole area, we talked a couple of spots here, but let's talk about this. What is the area you service as a guide?
I go anywhere from which is Smith Point County Park east. If I'm doing anything local, I do not go up west with guided trips. I don't start my trips until early May. That fishing that I do early on up in the city and stuff like that, I do fish a little bit of private property that I have access to. That is just me and a couple of my buddies fish those areas. I don't start my guiding till the first week in May, and that will run from Smith Point Bridge east up both forks, whether it be the North Fork of Long Island down to the South Fork, which is obviously Montauk the end. But I don't, like I said, I don't really get, um, prone to one area because they're migratory fish, so they're on the move. You know,
Yes.
and and you know, and the baits are on the move, especially bunker. You could have a really good bite one day with, and then go back the next day like, oh my God, it's going to be unbelievable. But if the bait's bunker, the bunker's on the move. You know, for us to have really consistent bites, especially in the fall run, we need to have sand eels and we need to have the spearing because they kind of stay put longer. They'll stay put for weeks, and then the fish just pound on them. And then that's where you can almost guarantee, hey, they were there the night before. They're probably going to be back tomorrow night.
Yeah, but hey, like you said earlier, that comes with the experience of knowing where it is and getting your time in to have that mental acuity to know what's going on. What advice would you give to individuals considering a surf fishing charter for the very first time to make the most of their experience?
I would say, book something, during the day and book something in the spring of that year if you can, where you fall, because then you'll have experience with a guide. Maybe you come for lessons with me first, then we go on a guided trip, and then you fish the spring, and then hopefully, you'll get out there a bunch in the spring, and by the fall, you can kind of start working yourself around, you know, um, alone without a guide. And I always say this too: anybody starting out, I mean, you got to lean on your local tackle shops. You really do. These are the guys that are around fishing every day. They're around fishing. They're around fishermen. They're a wealth of knowledge, and they really should be utilized. We have to utilize them. And, it's such a benefit because you can go in there and they have the knowledge. Like when you walk into Dick's Sporting Goods, the person working in the fishing section today could be selling sneakers tomorrow and vice versa. And nothing against people that do that. It's just that if you're looking to really take your game to another level, you want to be around guys that are around fishing all the time. And there's a wealth of knowledge on the internet out there. I mean, research, research, research. It's easier to research when my dad taught me 95% of my fishing, and the guys that I was standing next to on the beach, the old timers, how to do it. Most of the people I ran into was people from Lilco. That was our power company way back in the day, because they worked the shift work. They were there the odd times at night and things like that. Police officers and firemen. That's who I fished around a lot. Because those guys had the wild hours and a couple days off, 3 on, 3 off. So you'd see them every day, things like that. And, those are a wealth of knowledge for me.
Yeah, I could see that one really paying off
Yeah.
for that. Well, let's get into let's ask this last one. We'll move into the social media world here. How can listeners find more information about your surf fishing charters, get in touch with you, or book a charter to go?
The easiest place is through, the social media, Facebook and Instagram. I'm on there, Bernie Bass Surf Casting Services on Facebook and Bernie_Bass on Instagram.
And all of that will be linked back, everybody, too. So you don't have to freak out that he just said it and it's not, don't worry. It's linked back on the findingdemosurffishing.com under this episode. It'll also be on social media, wherever you found this episode. All of that will be hyperlinked for you to get back to, so you can get up there to the old Northeast into New York and go fishing with Bernie. Let's talk about the fun one. Now, you've got a radio show and it's been doing quite well. It goes up on the podcast app. I finally saw it. I saw today's. It dropped. The new season's fully available to get into, which gives me bingeable for the next couple hours of driving, which I'm very appreciative of. I've been waiting for you to drop your next series. Can you share how you got started as into the digital creator world and started this radio show?
Yeah, it's funny. During COVID, I did a podcast, Hooked on Surf Fishing, with Bernie Bass, because all the shows and stuff were canceled. So I did 2 seasons of that during the whole COVID thing, because I think I kind of just did it out of boredom. I mean, everything was kind of shut down. We weren't even allowed to guide. Some guys were doing it, and charters. That's all kind of shut down during that time period as well. So I had a lot of extra time on my hands. So I started that, and then there's a local radio station in town, and this kind of just then morphed into the radio show and fell into my lap. And the guy, I met with the owners of the station, and Bruce Tria, the general manager over the station, said, this is something we'd like to go with. Would you be interested in doing it? And I said, yeah, I definitely would be interested in doing it. It's never been tried on the East End out here. They do a fishing report on another local station where they just have the report that runs a week during the week, which we do our reports throughout the week also. But we air on Saturday mornings and Sunday evenings. And, like I said, he approached me about the show, and I said, listen, I'm not a communications major, so he said, hey, but fishing. And I go, you're right. I said, we'll go with that. And that's what we did. And, we're just wrapped up our second season. In November, we wrapped up the second season, and then it was put all up on Spotify and stuff like that. So the first 2 seasons are up there, and we'll start April 13th, which is 2 days before the official opening in New York State of striper season, which is the 15th, and it'll run through the week before Thanksgiving. I've had a ton of support from not only the sponsors, the radio station, but the fans. I mean, we have a drawing every week for our angler of the week or whatever, and then we do a drawing at the end of the year. I mean, people have been so generous. The prize packages at the end of the year have been a couple $1,000s both seasons, and it's been really exciting. And I'm excited to get started with season 3. The first time I was on, I went, I didn't know. I went to break when we weren't supposed to break and things like that. I made rookie mistakes. It's funny because I look back now when I see some of the season 1 stuff. I look at, that compared to now, I've come a long way, but I still have a lot to learn. I'm not a radio person. This is not what I went to school for, but it's a work in progress, but I think I'm getting better at it. And, it's real. I have such a diverse array of guests over the last 2 seasons, because it's not even just about fishing. It's about everybody that has a stake in the waters around Long Island, which is great. I mean, I have oyster farmers on there. I had this guy Jay Lippin. He's a chef that won Chopped, and he uses all local seafood in his dishes and things like that. And it's really, really come to fruition. I'm really having a lot of fun with it.
And you're doing a great job. I mean, you
I
really are.
appreciate that.
I've enjoyed listening to it. I mean, being a Florida guy, I know it's all the Northeast, but it's still there have been several things I've picked up from it, and I've enjoyed. I know that I pulled that one. I text you. I was like, "Hey, are you willing to take a little weird criticism?" Because you had 2 episodes where the microphones
Yeah.
went screwy, and you're like, "Wait, that happened?" I was like, "Yeah," and I felt bad, but then I was like, "Wait a minute." If I told him this, I bet you next year he'll be like, hold on, we had this happen. We're not going to let that happen again. And it was, I didn't feel bad after that. I was like, okay, cool. It was a nice, like, insider together. We're trying to fix it.
No, absolutely. I'm open to all suggestions, and I like getting, an email or something like that. Says, Bernie, but why don't you try to get a guest that knows about this or something like that? I'm always willing to do that, because like I said, I'm a work in progress, and I think the show's a work in progress. And we already have had a couple meetings about putting a couple new wrinkles in it this year. Like I want it to stay fresh, and I want it to be informative. So, because we've had organizations on there that I had even no knowledge about that, and there is so many people that have a stake in the waters around Long Island. And there's so many of these organizations and people that it's just, I want to help them get it out there because, the motto at the radio stations, all local, all the time, is their motto, and that's what I really want to bring. And I think it really is a good marriage between me and the radio station and the people that follow the show.
I kind of want to, you know what? I'm not going to follow the questions here. We're just going to talk about this. It's a weird game though when we're in the podcast and radio world because it's such a digital media now. Everyone wants the YouTube, and then all of a sudden they find us. They find the podcast, they find the radio shows, and they're like, wait, why wasn't I checking this out? And it's that drive time. It's like, hey, you're in the car. You want to learn about fishing? Turn on the radio. You're going to learn something. One thing I've always found, or I guess my better question is, what have you found too with your side of doing this that all of a sudden was like an aha moment for people when they first tune in, and all of a sudden next they're lifelong members.
Yeah, I think I'm very surprised at the reach like it gets, even just through because with you have the radio itself, and then you have the apps that people listen to the radio, live at 6 a.m. and then they'll listen to the follow-up show on the repeat telecast Sunday at 6 p.m. is because we've had winners from Rhode Island, Connecticut, Jersey, that everybody is tuning in. And, we are in the digital world. I think social media has really helped promote it as well, the radio show. It's really like, exciting to be part of it. I'm just as excited to go to the radio station every week. And hopefully that excitement, the people that are listening out there have that excitement to listen every week.
Oh, I think they do because
Because
you
I'm really
guys
doing it
really.
out of passion for fishing. That's really, how I've done it. And I've met so many great people, within the industry through the radio.
You and the captain have great back and forth. I mean, the way you guys feed off each other is it's solid, and the whole team dynamic. You guys have got something special up there, and it's again, I enjoy listening to it. If you guys haven't, if many of my listeners you haven't heard it yet, you really need to. It's got a lot of great things, and there's more than just New York and New England area. There's a lot of pieces to that puzzle, and that show is absolutely worth your time. Um, God, I gotta stay on this because if not, I'm gonna end up talking to you all day, and you got stuff to do. Uh, has doing the social media, the radio, all that stuff, has it made you a better angler?
Um, I think it's made me more of knowing the diversity that's in fishing. Actually, that some of the things I don't know about being a better angler, but I think it's made me have a better knowledge of what goes on Long Island with fishing outside of just getting on the beach and fishing or getting on the boat and fishing. That so many people do have a stake in this, and when the regulations change and new rules come in, how many people it affects. When they close days of fishing and things like that. And I've heard, I've had people on both sides of these. The windmill thing is a hot topic up here. Both sides of that with the windmills, putting the windmills in, and then we have the dying
Yeah.
off of the whales. We've had both sides of that. You know, um, we've had a lot of shark attacks over the last, couple years. So, there's a guy I've have on, Chris Paparo has a wealth of knowledge in that area. So I want, we had some recent attacks, and I get him right on the show because he's such an expert. And there's so many of those people out there. Yeah, I have a wealth of knowledge in the guiding and fishing area, but these people have a wealth of knowledge in other areas, which I guess it makes me a smarter. I guess it can make me a smarter angler. You know?
Well, knowledge is key. You
Yeah,
know that. I mean, you're the teacher.
yeah.
You see that every day. You see what that light bulb does for people, and as
I
it comes
think
across in our radio waves, that's huge. I mean, you get that one angler. I mean, I say this in every episode. If I can touch one angler and change something for them so that they are successful, then I did this right. Every minute I put into this, whether I get to 1 million listeners or 10, as long as I helped one of that, then I did it right.
no, I agree. I like to learn things, especially when it comes to the water. I'm not, just a fisherman. I'm a conservationist. I'm, a person that takes care of the beaches. I'm the guy picking up garbage on the beaches, throwing it in the back of my truck because I'm benefiting from what we have on Long Island. And there's so many people that benefit what happens on Long Island. And, I want to get the word out there about those organizations.
You guys are doing a phenomenal job. We're been in an hour and five here. Let's get the last bait check, and we'll get you the last questions, and we'll get you out of here because I'm gonna get in trouble if I keep doing this, man. I'll keep staying with you all day. I know I
Me
will.
too. I'll keep.
This bait check is being brought to you by DS Custom Tackle. DSCustomTackle.com is the website. Go on over there and take a look. As you can see, it is jam packed full of gear. Yeah, if you need some stuff, yeah, I think you covered here. If you need rigs, look at this. There are so many in the shop. You need to get your hands on anything from drums. Look at that. Kings, pomps down here, perch. It's not just Florida. This has got you covered up and down the East Coast and the West Coast. It doesn't matter where it is. You're all set up there. And if you're a rig maker and you're looking to get your hands on beads, floats, things of that nature, hey, look at that. Tons of beads right here, and the floats is in another section. There is a bunch. The Scullies. Get the Scullies. Yeah. DSCustomTackle.com. Go take a look. Get your order in today. Great product, great people, and they're doing great things. It's the downside of keeping your finger on the trigger when you're sitting hovering over the thing you got to click. It's like, oh, no, don't, damn it. Sorry about that. Um, you said, like you said, the new season just dropped. You're getting ready into the next one. What are some future plans for the show?
We're gonna add a couple different categories. I want to get a little more tips and techniques out there a little bit this season, a little more. And I think, because we do have such a good following. I want it to be something for everyone, whether you're a novice angler, whether you're an experienced angler, whether you're just a person on Long Island that enjoys the water. I just want something for everyone, and I want to keep it fresh.
I don't think that's going to be hard for you. You guys got so much great things, man. I'm like
I really
gushing about it.
appreciate it, and I appreciate everybody listening in every week because without them, there's no show.
Yep. Yes. Uh, for the people that are looking to do what we do, what advice do you have for aspiring digital creators who want to blend this into the surf fishing and get it out on the airwaves to show how creative it is?
I just think go with your gut and go with what you think is right in your mind, and try it out. You're going to make mistakes, but be willing to try it out, and be willing for people to say no to you for certain things, and just keep grinding like anything else.
Nice. Finally, where can people find all the show information? How can they tune in?
They can tune in at if you're local here, WRIV 1390 AM on the local end, and then on the digital end, it's on Simple Radio and Tune In. Those are the two I always throw out there. But any radio app that's out there, you'll just be able to get the show that way.
Nice. Well played. All right, last ones here. We'll get you out for the day. Let's talk about the beginners. For someone who's just starting out in the surf fishing game, what's one piece of advice you'd give them to send them on the right path?
One piece of advice to send them on the right path, I would say get on the internet and research what the top guys are doing. Get in there, do the research. get to seminars. It's the perfect time of the year right now. There's a lot of fishing shows coming up. Sit in those seminars. Definitely sit in the seminars and get out there, because there is a wealth of information on the internet. And and honestly, I write a ton of articles, which can be found on ibass360.com. I write an article every month. I've been doing that for probably 3 or 4 years. It gears towards everyone, whether you're just getting into the game or you're an expert fisherman. And there is a ton of information on that site itself, whether you're in the freshwater game, offshore, inshore, surf fishing, kayak, and there's so many great anglers over there writing so many great articles.
Very nice. All right, last question, and you are free, sir. What's next for you?
Um, I don't know. I don't know. I kind of like. I'm finally comfortable with what I'm doing. I think I'm in a good place with what I'm doing. I am always looking to get better. With the radio show, like I said, and I don't know. I had a couple calls and other opportunities come my way, but I'm a loyal guy too, and I think the people have kind of been with me along the way. You know that they stuck by me, and also gave me some of the wealth of knowledge that I have and opportunities. I want to hang in there where I am. And that's it. And with guiding and some of the sponsors I have, with fishing gear and stuff like that, I just want to move forward with them.
Great stuff, Bernie. Thank you so much, man. I appreciate you taking this time out on your day off here and just talking with me. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for all the knowledge and experiences that you've shared here. I know it's going to help somebody. Hell, I know it's already helped me on a couple of pieces. I've already got notes down for myself. But seriously, thank you for everything. I really do appreciate it.
Oh, thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it. And hopefully we'll get you up here this summer and get you out there maybe and maybe get you on the show. I'd
Yeah,
love to have you on my show.
sold. Yes, easy day. We can do that all day.
Sounds
All
great.
right. All right, man. We'll talk soon.
Thank
All right, ladies and gentlemen, there it was Bernie Bass. Yeah, if that didn't help you, I don't know what you missed, because I've got a page full. Lots of good stuff on there. You can, like I said, you can take a look back at his show, Bernie Bass and the Captain. You can find that on all your social or on your apps for podcasts. You can find them on all the players there. Like you said, if you're up in that Northeast area in New York, WRIV 1390 AM, tune in on that. There's going to be a lot of things. And also the iBass 360. You're not going to want to miss those articles. Lots of good things there. So thank you for coming back or coming here today. I appreciate you. It's always fun to keep going. You're going to have a lot more shows coming. You don't want to miss out. You've been listening to Finding Demo Surf Fishing. I'm out of here.